Good afternoon from Austin, Texas. On behalf of the NMC, I am delighted to welcome you to the NMC Beyond the Horizon. In this one-hour presentation, we'll explore a key theme found across our Horizon Report series. Creating a hybrid experience in educational settings is a growing trend that has been highlighted in multiple editions of the NMC Report. Hybrid learning, also referred to as blended learning, is the integration of both online and face-to-face modalities to create a cohesive learning experience with flexibility and support for learners. Today we're going to discuss the hybrid experience in schools and in higher education. I'm your host today, Alex Freeman, Senior Director of Membership and Special Projects at the NMC. If you are on Twitter, our hashtag for today's event is #ImagineIf. ImagineIf. I'll drop that into the chat here in a moment. Now on to the moderator of today's program, Rodney Murray, Executive Director of Academic Technology at the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia. Take it away, Rodney.
Thank you, Alex, for the introduction, and I want to welcome everybody. Really thank Alex for putting all this together, and I think we're going to have a great discussion here with some very interesting topics. People handle the hybrid experience in different ways, but before we get to the details, why don't we just go down the panel, and I'll ask each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at your institution. So first, how about you, Kathy? Kathy Littlefield is from Pierce College. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Pierce?
Hi, Alex. Thank you for having me here. And Rodney, thanks for kicking us off. I am Kathy Littlefield. I am an Associate Professor of Organizational Leadership and Management at Pierce College in Philadelphia in our Graduate Studies program. I have been teaching full-time for about 3 years now, as well as an adjunct for about 6 years. My dissertation happened to be hybrid course design and delivery, faculty approaches, essential components, and the impact of professional development. So I've had an interest in hybrid learning for quite a few years, and I'm excited to be here today to share about what we do here at Pierce College.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Next, let's hear from David Schoenstein from Smart Sparrow. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Smart Sparrow.
Thanks, Rodney, and thanks for having me. So Smart Sparrow is a education technology company with a platform that allows instructors to create personalized courseware or adaptive personalized learning experiences. And my role, or what I'm mainly working on at the moment, is a really interesting project, a Gates Foundation funded project that is trying to produce a series of courses for introductory biology, chemistry, physics, specifically targeting low-income, disadvantaged, minority students, and kind of changing a little bit of the way the curriculum is taught, the way we teach science in the curriculum, and a lot of hybrid use cases in that project.
All right, thank you, David. And last but not least, we have Tara Graves from the Washoe County School District in Nevada. And I noticed when I looked on the map, it's got to be one of the biggest school districts and counties that I've ever noticed. Tara, tell us a little bit more.
Yes, it is. Hi, everyone. I am a program specialist here in Washoe County for the 21st Century Learning Division. I create and facilitate online and blended courses for teachers, K-12 teachers. I was a classroom teacher prior to that, and we are very excited. I will talk a little bit about what it looks like in our classrooms as well. And I am also an NMC K-12 ambassador.
Very good. Thank you, Tara. Okay. Before we get into the depth of our conversation, I thought that it'd be a good idea for our audience just to define what we mean a little bit about what hybrid means. So I think Alex is going to put up a graphic in a second here and point out that, I don't think, yeah, there we go. Good. So there's a spectrum, I would say, between totally face-to-face courses and totally online courses, which would be distance learning. So it's sort of, it's mentioned that between about 30 and 80%, if you use online content in your courses, you could consider that hybrid or blended learning. And there are some Folks would also say that flipping the classroom is a type of hybrid learning. There might be some subtle differences there. So that's what we mean. So many faculty maybe don't know they're teaching hybrid because they teach face-to-face, but they use a lot of technology enabling in their learning management systems, and they might have students do a lot out of class. So that's what we mean by hybrid learning. But as you'll see, it varies quite a bit from school to school. So again, let's go to our panel and in the same order, and I'll ask the panel to discuss, what does the hybrid experience look like at your institution? So first, why don't we talk to Kathy?
Sure. So at Pierce College, we have a very strong online contingency of our student population. We're a small, non-private, non-residential institution. And what we were finding was that students were having to decide, do I want to go fully online? Do I want to go fully on campus? How do I want to enroll in the courses, just as everybody else goes through? And we have created a model that actually allows the students to decide on a week-to-week basis. Pierce Fit is a model modeled somewhat after the high flex model that Brian Beatty out in California created. And as an institution who has accelerated learning, we have 7-week sessions, two 7-week sessions per term. Our students now have the ability to take 2 courses at a very quick pace. However, they get to decide on a week-to-week basis whether to participate in the course fully online or on campus. So the model in itself, actually, Alex, if you could pull up the one screen, the courses are all designed in a way that the student has the ability to decide which path they're going to follow. So if a student decides to participate on campus, they will follow the column that is marked on campus participation. The premise is that all of the pre-work is articulated, and then of course what happens in the classroom occurs, and then the students are provided with what they do after the class is ended. If the student decides to participate fully online for the week, then they would follow the appropriate column, which would be the next zoom in. And it also identifies what the student needs to do prior to doing all of the work for the week, and then what has to happen afterwards. So even though they have the full week to do it, there's still timelines that they have to follow. There's still posting guidelines. But the flexibility is what is very popular at our institution. Something that we have done is we have actually made this as a strategic initiative, which has, in a sense, made it a challenge. In one sense, in that we started off with the fall of 2015 going full Pierce Fit with our graduate studies courses, as well as our undergraduate healthcare administration courses and a few gen ed courses. By the fall of 2016, the rest of the entire college will go with the Pierce Fit model. So we're probably one of the first institutions in the country that took this model across the institution. There are quite a few that have gone with the small, maybe programmatic adaptations of it, or even single course adaptations of it, but it has benefited us in a great way. Where we see the numbers actually coming in since this became a strategic initiative is how the students participate. And this is where the hybrid portion comes in. What are they doing? How are they doing this? So starting in the fall term of 2015, we had 43% participated fully online, meaning they never came to campus. We had 12.5 participate fully on campus, and then we had 43% actually flip-flop back and forth. Keeping in mind that in the fall of 2015, obviously we have Thanksgiving. So at that point in time, instead of losing a week of instruction, those students, instead of attending on campus or not having class that week, participated fully online. So even though that 12.5 number looks low, it actually has some justification behind it. In the spring 2016 term to date, you can see the numbers are pretty similar. And we do have a very strong online culture at Pierce. So what we're working on, and one of our challenges, is that how do we add that value of coming to campus? How do the students decide which is really their best learning modality? But in the context of hybrid learning, it's hybrid at its finest, because the students not only get to learn in a modality that works best for them, they can now take that and fit it to their schedule, because life happens. We are strong adult learners, so life happens. One of the greatest impacts that we have noticed since we implemented this model is the absenteeism has decreased dramatically. In graduate studies, we had a typical 7% absenteeism rate, and since the implementation of Pierce Fit, that has dropped to a 4% absenteeism. As far as undergraduates, they had a 13.1 absenteeism rate, and that has dropped 4.9 is their percentage of absenteeism. So as opposed to a student not being able to make it to class because they're sick, because work happens, obligation, now they have that ability to make that decision to decide which way works best for them.
Thank you, Kathy. It seems like it could be pretty stressful for the faculty and staff, although I can see how it's very convenient for students. Let's move on to David. Now he's talking from a point of view of a software company, so I'll be anxious, David, to hear from you and how your customers are using your software and what kind of a hybrid model.
Definitely. So like I was saying before, the Smart Sparrow is a tool to produce some of this personalized learning experiences, in a digital format. And so what I think is of most interest, and obviously we work with many different institutions across the country, but what I think is probably most relevant and a very interesting project that I'm involved in is this Gates Foundation grant and project, which is called InSpark. So InSpark, Inspire a Spark, and it's a teaching network. It's a science network, and so it's a group of academics or a group of institutions that are collaborating to produce some courseware, some science courseware, and it's also a group of institutions that are also teaching, and there's also evaluations ongoing. So what is unique about this courseware that we are producing is, yes, it's personalized, yes, it's adaptive, you can customize it using the authoring environment and the platform, and there's analytics and all these different types of things. But what we're trying to do at the core of this project is really motivate students with a slightly different curriculum. So we are trying to thread the learning objectives of traditional, introductory biology, for example, through real-world science problems. And so this is designed to give students a bit of a narrative. It's like at the the courseware that's being produced is kind of at the cross section or the nexus of a video game, a movie, and a course, but it's neither of those. So in terms of the use of this courseware, we're mostly working with a lot of two-year institutions, given the demographic that we're trying to target, but also a lot of four-year institutions as well. So, and obviously this courseware can be used, and I appreciate even the word courseware is a very kind of nebulous. I've seen some really bad reactions lately to kind of this word courseware, but essentially material that can be used online or in a blended setting. So fully online or blended. And I think probably the most interesting thing that we're starting to see is feedback from instructors like, with this courseware, my whole demeanor as an educator has actually shifted. So when I use this courseware, I can actually adapt it to my existing course, and it frees me up. It frees me up as an instructor to support my students, to deviate from the lesson plan. I don't need to push through aggressively through my lecture material. And because of that, it is then engaging and motivating the students. In addition to everything we're trying to do is very high fidelity, high production value, interactive courses. But I guess for a blended setting, that is what we're finding most interesting and rewarding about the project.
Great, thank you, David, for that explanation. It sounds very interesting. I know adaptive learning is certainly making inroads, and I suspect that. I hope for your sake the company is successful. I'm sure it will be. Let's move on to hear from Tara. What what does hybrid or blended learning mean at your institution, Tara?
Okay, thank you, Rod. So I'm in professional learning. So we work with teachers in K-12 schools. We have, in our department for 21st Century Learning, we have courses that are specific to how to implement 21st century skills and integrate technology into their classrooms. And we are very deliberate in the planning of how many face-to-face sessions we have and what kind of online assignments they have. For example, our main course that we want all of our teachers to take, we have, like you said, in our district, we have 64,000 students in almost 100 schools. So if you can do the math and figure out how many teachers that is, it's really difficult for us to do a completely face-to-face class for that many teachers. So we do our best to offer many options, and the blended one is the most popular. So the practitioner class is a 9-week class, and we start out with one face-to-face meeting for 2 hours every week for the first 4 weeks of the class to build up their background knowledge and their pedagogy around 21st century learning. And then in between each of the face-to-face times, they have online assignments, and we've just started having teachers do blogging to reflect on their learning. And so twofold for them to experience blogging and reflecting as a student so that they can then implement that with their own students coming from that experience that they have with us. The remainder of the time is spent on, after that first 4 weeks, is for them to implement different Web 2.0 tools that they learn about throughout the online assignments. We have a catalog of recorded webinars that we've created around different topics like blogging, infographics, Edmodo, Google Docs, I mean, you name it, they're learning about it, and those are all self-selected for them, so they can pick different webinars to complete based on their interests and what they want to learn about to use with their own students. They also do a learning team project where they collaborate with teachers. We usually have more than one session of the class running, and we like to kind of get them mixed up with each other, and learning how to collaborate online is part of that. And we want them to develop a lesson plan or a unit plan based on their learning in the class together. And then the very last face-to-face we call an expo. So if you can imagine like a poster session at a conference or a science fair, it's kind of like that, but in a digital format. But they all come face-to-face, and they share what they've learned. We really see a lot of success with this particular class, and we have several other classes. We have one called Camp 21, which is a completely online class, and teachers can, it's ranged about 6 weeks in length, and they explore, again, more of those self-selected webinars that we recorded and applying it in their classroom. That's huge with the courses that we offer, is that they have to do something with what they learn. It's not just to sit and get. That's what we see as the biggest difference with online and blended learning, is that you're not just spending the time, sitting in a class. You actually have to do something for it to qualify as attending or as completing the class. And we see a little pushback from some teachers because they're just not used to that. And but once they finished a class, they feel really good about implementing what they've learned. Other departments in our school district have also been offering some online and blended courses. So we have our ELL department, which is English language learners. Our New Teacher Academy has been offering classes for our first-year teachers. And also our assessment department is offering online classes as well, and some blended. But we, more and more we hear they want more. They want more of our in-service offerings to be offered in a blended or a completely online environment. So I think that's job security for me.
Yeah, may that be for all of us too. Thank you very much, Tara. I think we've touched on a lot of the benefits of blended and hybrid learning, but just to make it a little bit more explicit, you know, when I think of how I went to school and we had traditional lectures, you know, you think, you know, where did the actual learning take place? It wasn't necessarily listening to a lecture and having the didactic material, and that's why a lot of folks have started to do the flipping, where they let them, you know, watch pre-recorded lectures on their own time, so to speak. You could say that's online, or to and then have activities in class and have more dialogue. So I think, you know, certainly you could say there's more student engagement and convenience with blended and hybrid. And this leads to, I think, a better pedagogy. One of the issues here, I know, is at University of the Sciences is a shortage of classroom space. So just having, you know, sharing classrooms and not having students meet in the same classroom, you know, 3 times a week could also be a benefit. So why don't we just let everybody jump in, and certainly if you want to expound on that issue about what the benefits are.
What the benefits are of Pierce Fit is that we have the ability to take the learning to wherever the student is. And in the day and age of how do we do that, our course design is set up in a way that there's alternatives within the course itself. As we design the courses and convert the courses, and keep in mind that we had a course already which was fully online, and we had a course already that was fully on campus with an online component. So as we converted these courses into what we now call Pierce Fit, we still had to do some tweaking to them. We had to really go back and look at the design, make sure that it makes sense, make sure that we're able to take the learning to where the student is. And it was a good practice in that it was a lot of work. But it was a very good practice in that it actually had us all go back and take a look at our courses again. You know, when you design a course and you have this plan in mind, as it starts to run and starts to get improved, does that always go back to the master? Well, now we have the chance to go back to that master and look at them. With our Pierce Fit model, though, looking at making sure we have the alternatives for whether the learner is online or on campus doesn't mean that they have to be equivalent. Because one thing that we wanted to be very clear about is that we're not taking what happens in the classroom, videoing it, and saying to the online learner, okay, now you have to watch this 4-hour video and pretend that you were sitting in the classroom. So we're not duplicating what we're doing, but we're producing alternative ways of learning the same content and achieving the same goals. And in our case, one of the benefits is the reusability of it. We're able to capture all of this, and even as we're doing lectures in class, we may use Camtasia and record something, and that way we can actually snip it down into a 6 or 7 minute capture, so that the online student does get to hear if there's an explanation about an assignment. Then they get to hear that benefit of the question and answers as it's happening. The benefits are huge for the student in our case.
Yeah, I think we all want to chime in on that. Tara, what do you say about what some of the benefits are?
Okay, so I totally agree with what Kathy was saying. Is I have seen bad models of the hybrid or the online experience with teachers who just think, yeah, I'm just going to record my whole hour or 2-hour lecture and expect that to be engaging for the students, and it's just not. None of us want to sit and watch that at all. What I see as the biggest benefit is that, and this goes for any learner, adult learners or K-12 students, is that they have the opportunity for many different interactions with the teacher, with other students, with the content. They can watch, you know, a short video over and over again until they understand it. They can always have access to course materials. They always have a place to discuss questions or to offer help to a classmate. It's much more engaging than a traditional situation. And even if you're in a lecture hall and students are using, if they're using a computer or some device, they're able to engage in their learning and the content at a much deeper level. If you mention, an author, or if you're discussing a book, the students can go online and read more about that author, or they can actually tweet with the author. It's just a much higher level of engagement in their own learning, and also just having the ability to reach other people in their own learning process.
Thank you. David, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So I mentioned that for our project, to hear back from faculty that they're basically engaging more students because they feel like they're free. They get freed up. They essentially are able to say that they are streamlining that precious face-to-face time, because students are going away working on these activities, and then that frees them up and allows them to kind of deviate from the lesson plan and support students. So I already mentioned that. One thing that this courseware and blended setting also allows is obviously a reduction in cost. So for this courseware that we're producing, we have the whole course available to students for only $25. And that can replace a very expensive textbook. So that's obviously really important for the setting and the demographic that we're targeting. I would also add that when you're producing courseware that you can customize and adapt to your class, then you also have the ability to kind of share lots of different interesting in-class activities. And so the way in which we are connected in this project with connecting different institutions and connecting faculty, there's a lot of great collaboration between instructors that goes on, which I think is fantastic. And so trying to get faculty to appreciate that you can never replace the instructor, that this courseware is never designed to replace the instructor. That's been really important. And to give you a sense of what is kind of happening with some of the courseware that we're producing, the blended setting is fantastic for this type of courseware because it's very project-based. So you can imagine students are going away and they have an online discussion board, and they have a personalized learning asset, which is, for example, they have a Linnaean classification in a biology course, and they have to personally move in and classify species and build out a classification of species. And every student's classification is actually different. And so then they can go away and work at this at home, and different students might be kind of confused, and you may have one superstar student that comes in the next day, and they show their big, really extensive classification, and the penny drops to the rest of the class, and you transfer the knowledge from other students, and you can have a fantastic discussion around that. Other projects include a randomized field of 500 stars that students have to go in and try and find a habitable world in a project there. And again, this is their own personalized learning asset, and then if it's blended, then they can go away, they can work through a project and then come back and kind of collaborate in class and work through issues that they may have had. So obviously also the benefit of having some analytics to see where the common misconceptions that our students are making.
Excellent. That is a good segue to a thought that I had about some of the must-have online tools that are out there, and I think you hit on a key component, which is peer-to-peer instruction and taking advantage of that. I think students enjoy that more because they're integrating and talking to their peers. One of the pieces of software out there which we've had experience with here at U Sciences is called a PrinNet, and in a nutshell, the instructor posts a video. It could be a case presentation. The students then research their response, and they have to respond in kind with video, and then that unlocks the next stage, which allows them to view their peers' work, and they can actually vote on their peer, and then they finally get to see what the expert says, and you can bring in, the software allows them to bring in outside experts and collaborate with other faculty. So that's one I think has really shown its advantages here in some of our online programs and face-to-face programs in occupational therapy and physical therapy. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kathy, you've had some experience with ApprenNet as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. ApprenNet is relatively new, and I think, Rodney, you and I probably were one of the first sets of users for it. But what ApprenNet has done for us is it's allowed our online students to have a face and a voice. And in our FIT model, it actually makes a lot of sense for us to utilize it, since we have students who will be on campus and online actually in the same learning environment. So it's bringing them together in a way that never happened before. But even in a traditional hybrid format, I think the ability to utilize video in one capacity or another is critical, because that online learner does not need to be known by their typing style. They need to be known by who they are as a learner, who they are as an adult, as a human who's going through some sort of college program. To be able to vocalize and to be able to articulate things is a skill that's necessary. And I think ApprenNet is wonderful for that. That's at apprennet.com. But even if it's Google Hangout, even if it's Skype, if it's some way of recording video and posting it, I think I certainly agree with you on that.
Certainly, there are no shortage of video platforms out there now, and I agree. It's got to be an important component. Everybody else, just jump in. Any other must-have online tools that you want to share with us?
Yes, Rod. So for our professional learning, we use Canvas, which is a learning management system. It's pretty robust and has a lot of different functionality. You can put a lot of different content in there. It's got the grade book. It's got discussion forums. You name it. It's our most recent one that we're using. We've also used Moodle before, M-O-O-D-L-E, which is a free open source LMS for people. We've used Google Communities before. Edmodo, our teachers use Edmodo to offer a blended option for their students. We've seen teachers use, we're starting to use Google Classroom more in our K-12 classrooms, and also just social media. Some teachers use Twitter quite a bit. We try to incorporate different types of social media in our own courses. I don't know how many of you know, but K-12 can be difficult with some of these online tools, with things that students are allowed to use, things that are blocked at their schools, and also students that don't necessarily have access at home. So maybe they don't have internet, or they don't have a device of some kind. So I guess we'll talk about that more in the challenge section, but we use a whole range of different tools for sure.
I might jump in and show a quick slide just to kind of summarize some of the, yeah, that's the one, perfect, thanks Alex. So I think some of the must-haves, and so, just to backtrack a little bit to what Tara was saying, so the, LMS is good. With this courseware, we kind of sit on top of the LMS, and there's this term, next generation courseware that's been coined for this project, and we work with a lot of different grantees, other grantees on this project. I think there are some 7 grantees that are part of this project, and so what we all hear from instructors is the need for the ability to customize the courseware. So that's crucial. I think that's really important for blended learning. And it's a frightening thought to think that biology or psychology or philosophy would be taught the exact same way. This is the kind of pushback that I think we all are getting from MOOCs, and I often describe this courseware as the anti-MOOC, particularly because of the things that are on this slide here. Where we're heading is that we want to try and obviously put faculty back at the center with these tools to customize. But I think what's also important is, shifting to talk about learning experiences, not just content and PDFs and multiple choice and videos. When you start talking about the learner experience, then that involves the projects that they're working on, but also the in-class activities and what creates a good learning experience there in terms of collaboration between students. I think another must-have is definitely the analytics. So you need to be able to, in a blended environment, go away, have your students do some coursework, go to your analytics, see where they're actually might be struggling. You actually see the misconceptions that a student has actually made. You can see the path that they're taking in an adaptive lesson. And that will highlight and give you the ability to come back to your, when you meet your students again, and support them. And you can deviate from the course, from the lesson plan, and you can say, well, I can see you're struggling with this. Let's focus on this. Let's just talk about this one misconception that I can see you're struggling with. And but the analytics is also twofold. So I would also say that as from the point of view of an instructional designer, then you can also use the analytics to improve the courseware, and that's also a lot of what we try and do. We have many iterative cycles of improvement on the courseware. It's never static, and we really walk the walk when it comes to improving this courseware and talking to instructors. We actually have many instructors in our network that we talk to, we get feedback from, and we use that to improve the courseware. So yeah, I would say those are some of the must-haves from my point of view for this project.
Great. I think there's a lot of analytics out there. Sometimes faculty and maybe staff don't have enough time to pay attention to it. But I know, for example, Blackboard has a retention center, which has a lot of good information if faculty would use it. A lot of schools use Blackboard. I think this brings up some of the challenges and trends that we're seeing. In fact, there was a question from our audience about why faculty are still at the center, why not students at the center? And I think that's where we're headed, to more of a student-centered experience. Any of you want to comment on that in terms of trends and challenges?
Sure. I think that was talking about some of the points that I was making. I think everything that we do in terms of producing the courseware is definitely focused on the student. So student is at the center whenever we are producing the courseware. But in terms of giving courseware, that's why I focus on what the courseware is capable of doing and allowing the faculty to do. So that's why I think faculty at the center is a discussion in terms of the capability of the platform and the courseware. Also, there's some questions here. Did you need top-down support from department heads and chair to get instructor compliance, or did you start with interested instructors and the word spread? So that's a great question, and it's like there's no one single answer to that. I would say you need both. You always need both. But I would probably lean more towards the side of being faculty-led. I like the idea of being faculty-led and guided by their innovation and their excitement in the project. And that's really inevitably where it has to fall. You can have interest from someone at the administrative level, but obviously a project will never have traction. So, and there's a final question: what is being used for next-gen courseware to implement these aspirations? Not sure I understand the question. So it's a platform. I guess I'm talking about courseware that sits on top of an LMS. So very interactive, kind of project-based, inquiry-based activities. Maybe you could reiterate whoever asked that question.
I think that was. Explain. I think it may have been more of a general question. Why don't we let? I know Kathy, you were going to say something about faculty challenges in this area.
Well, one of the things that I think David really hit on is about who's spearheading this. In our situation, we were very fortunate in that we had a faculty member in our undergraduate healthcare. She's the faculty chair who started this whole initiative at Pierce. We didn't call it Pierce Fit at the time, but there were a few faculty members that jumped on, and I was one of them. As soon as I heard it, I thought, okay, this is really cool. But we also had that benefit of the top-down support as well. With it becoming part of the strategic plan, it was coming from above, but it was also coming from parallel sides as far as there were some of us supporting faculty members. One of our approaches to how do we implement this design is that we had an implementation team, and it was headed up by a vice president of academic advancement, but we also had two faculty chairs who were taking the lead. But then we had sub-teams that were made up of faculty as well as administration, and really to have the ability to have the faculty voice put into it. As we went into our faculty meetings, it wasn't that we were being told this is what we had to do. It was those of us who were doing it saying, hey, this is what's coming of it. This is what the students are saying. This is how it's working here on our end. And so I certainly echo what David is saying, and I think Tara probably has something similar to say about that as well. In that if it comes to the point of being strictly top-down, it's not going to work, and it does need to remain student-centered. We're very student-centered. In fact, our students absolutely love Pierce Fit. The faculty are getting there. Not that there's a pushback by any means, but it's a challenge in our end in that the faculty, we've got a lot more work to do. Not only do we have all the course conversions to do, but now we still have to it takes a little bit longer because that level of engagement really has to be connected between the two modalities, as opposed to being a high engagement on the online learning and a high engagement on the on-campus learning. And we are judged by a high engagement approach to teaching. It's a metric that is used, and it's something that we take very seriously. So I think it has to remain student-centered.
Tara, did you have something to add to that from your experience?
Yes, absolutely. So, faculty-led or faculty-centered, I'm not quite sure about that. I know with the courses that we design, the idea is that it's more on the students, so it's not a sit and get type of thing, or we're not trying to shove the information at people. It's more of the inquiry method and very student-centered as far as they have choice. That's huge for professional learning and huge for blended as well. That all learners like to have choice, and so the more choices we offer in our not only the course formats, but the activities that they do within the courses, they should be very engaging and very based on what the learner wants to know and wants to do with what they know. One of the questions about, what was it, the top-down, our department pretty much led the way in our district. I believe that we wanted to do online courses. Before I got into this department, I was a mentor teacher, and we designed some online and blended courses for our new teachers to attend, and that was a very new thing in our district. And so part of what the teachers needed was that change of culture of what does an in-service class look like and what's expected of you as a participant in a class. And so not only training them on whatever piece of technology they're going to use to access the course, but also the expectations of, okay, you have an assignment that you actually need to turn in by a certain date. It's not just doing the time and sitting in a class. You actually have to complete something. Once we spoke with our in-service department and our state Department of Education, that really got the ball rolling. And then other departments in the school district wanted to offer courses as well in that format. So they kind of came to us and said, okay, how do we do this? And we did some technical training on the LMS, and we did pedagogy or andragogy when teaching adults. How do we teach in this way? So it's been quite a journey. We've been doing this probably 10 years in the school district, and it's adapting and evolving more and more. And participants, now that's another thing. The teachers, many teachers will sign up for a class, whether it's online or blended, and when they realize that, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work, they'll drop the course. And I guaranteed any class that I've taught will have at least 5 people out of like a 30 people in the class will drop in the first week. And it's just because they are not ready, they're not used to it, they're you know, either struggling with the technology or struggling with having to interact with other people in the online format. So we've definitely come a long way. We have a good community of our teachers who are taking classes, you know, more and more classes in this way, and they're always demanding more. So I really see a good growth, at least in our school district, with this.
Certainly, I think one of the main issues is faculty development. I mean, technology changes so fast. We offer, at least from my point of view, we offer a lot of workshops, but whenever I can, I like to bring in outside folks, especially faculty that have experience with a new technology and can show it off. That's certainly one of the major challenges, I think, in moving our faculty into this realm. We can certainly open this up to more questions from the audience, or if the panel wants to jump in. I know we touched on assessment. Are there any other issues that fit into that category? Please feel free to jump in. I know we talked about you know, analytics and research. Anybody want to expand on that?
I'm happy to, Rod, just to maybe say a little bit more about for the InSpark project that we're working on. Something that's been really important for us, because we have quite a large research and evaluation team in this project. So we have researchers out of Berkeley and CMU and UT at Arlington. One thing that's been really important for understanding the different use cases and how effective this courseware is in the blended setting is to really try and go a bit beyond just course grade and completion rates. So in our research and evaluation team, we have designed what we call the learner success model. And so we are trying to measure improvements in scientific reasoning, for example, or critical thinking, or engagement in science, because a lot of the feedback we get from students is often, you know, this course is, you know, is like almost changed my life. You know, it's amazing, my whole perspective. You know, now I'm interested in science, or you know, I was always scared of science, but now I realized I could actually do it, and it's fun. You can't measure that with kind of a course grade. So that's something that's been a real important step to trying to measure the impact of this project, and hopefully, you know, it's still in progress, but hopefully we can show that this approach can lead to improved student motivation.
Does anybody else have any experience with other tools that help with student engagement, or student retention is a big deal now as schools are fighting for a shrinking enrollment in a lot of cases? We use something like called Starfish here, and it attempts to track student performance in terms of maybe grades or being absent from class, and with the attempt to try to find these students at an early point in their career to help to engage them and improve their success.
Rodney, something that we use, it's not necessarily one that we could fix some metrics to, would be the implementation of video conferencing for synchronous connectivity. I'm working on that in our graduate studies. It's not across the board by any means, and it's still on a small scale. But what we're finding is that the students who are able to engage in that synchronous conversation are much more engaged in the course as a whole, as opposed to being strictly online text-based learning. I would like to see the metrics on that maybe in a year to see if there's any correlation to those who participated synchronously and their success rate. But I think, again, it comes down to how are we meeting them, and are we meeting the needs of the student, and therefore are they persisting?
Thank you. Very interesting. How about if we open this up to the audience? Are there any questions that we can help to expand on? Here's one. We have an experience with hybrid models for limited residency degree programs for working adults. At U Sciences, I can't think of anything. Anybody else have any anything to say about that?
I'm not sure what is meant by limited residency degree programs.
Maybe Bob can expand on his question a little bit. I know some programs require residency. We have a online program, used to be an executive program on masters in pharmaceutical business, and they spent some time on campus, but the rest was online. Maybe is that what's meant by limited residency? Oh, here we go. People only come for very short periods of time. Yeah, 2 to 4 weeks. Certainly, that's been part of the model, as I mentioned, for our online MBA program. They might meet for an introduction, for a week at the beginning of the term, and then at the end to sum up when they have their reports to do. So that's certainly a kind of hybrid where that's one of the models. Especially if they're pretty far away, they don't want to come every other week, but certainly once at the beginning, maybe once at the end of the term might make sense.
Maybe while others are writing their questions, we can go back to this idea that I saw in the chat about incentives. I think one of the main incentives for faculty that we're seeing is if they see that they can be involved in the courseware production process even, and involved and have all a lot of support and the ability to customize all this courseware, that's often the most kind of powerful incentive. We don't really find that stipends and things like that are the best kind of incentive or work that well. It's mostly around giving them what we call pedagogical ownership. And I see there's another question that just came through. Measure the gains in motivation. So how exactly are we doing that? Surveys or anything else? Okay, good question. So the gains in motivation, there are some reflective pre and post surveys, yes. So there's one called a CURE survey, so C-U-R-E. That's really very much centered on science, and so we do ask students about their motivation at the beginning, at the end of the course. But we also have a team out of Berkeley, UC Berkeley, that's doing a lot of analysis. So every time a student is kind of clicking on this courseware and entering responses, it's obviously producing a lot of data. And so we spend a lot of time with the research team actually evaluating patterns of behavior. Are they moving between a project, understanding what they need to learn? I need a concept I need to master in this project, and then going back to a lesson. And when they hit a challenging part of the lesson, do we see another pattern of activity? Do they go to an online discussion board and get a response, or do they go to an instructor? And so these are all different patterns that we're finding in the data, and then we use that to see whether students are persisting and whether they might persist more than in a traditional course.
Yeah, in terms of incentives, we are trying to encourage faculty to move towards hybrid and maybe converting one of their face-to-face courses to an online course, and we do incentivize them. I think they get a stipend of about somewhere around $5,000 to develop a course, certainly with our help with our instructional designers helping them to put it together. But that, in our environment at least, that certainly helps. I would love to be able to encourage them to do that by just giving them pedagogic ownership, but they've already grabbed that, so we need to incentivize them some other way. Sign me up for that. We're getting near the end here. If there are any other questions, or I know Alex would like to sum up here at the end. Any other closing thoughts from any of our panelists?
None for me. Thanks so much for having me.
I think the only thing that I would say is that, in order for hybrid learning to work in any format, you have to approach it in the right way with the right mindset. It's not going to be easy, but the outcomes are certainly worth it. We have to remember what it is that we're here to do, and anything that can improve upon that experience, I think, is worth the effort. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody, and thank you for having me.
Great, thank you, Kathy.
And I agree too with Kathy. It's really is rewarding, and especially dealing with a K-12 teacher, to see their growth over the course of the class. And we've had teachers who start a class and they're really freaked out by the technology piece of it, that they can't find what the assignments are or whatever. And by the end of the class, they just seem like they're an old pro. So it's really cool to see that change in our teachers. And also that, I think Kathy mentioned this a little bit before, is that, once a course is developed, you don't just leave it and it's done. It really does take time to, you get feedback from the participants, you tend to revise the course almost every year based on that kind of feedback, whether it's the assignments or the content or the navigation or the organization of it. So really, once you've designed a course, it's like a work in progress at all times. So to just be patient and definitely contact other people that are doing it to get some support and help.
Thank you, Tara. I think it's very encouraging to see some of our faculty who maybe taught face-to-face for decades, and they finally get into online program or flipping the class, and it really gives them I think an added boost in their energy, and they're excited more about teaching and the tools that we have to offer them. So with that, I want to thank our panelists for a very engaging engaging time today, and let me turn it over to Alex to sum up.
Okay. Thank you all. To wrap up today's program, I want to thank our moderator, Rod, and panelists Tara, Kathy, and David for taking time to join us in the discussion on hybrid experience today. Just wanted to note that Rod has this very popular podcast that he does, and so I dropped a couple links on here called The Pulse, part of InsideHigherEd.com. So please check that out. I'm not sure, Rod, maybe you can talk a little bit about what your next one is, or maybe a topic that you're thinking about?
Well, I tend to do these. Sometimes I line up interviews ahead of time. Sometimes it's really quick, but I will point out in terms of technologies, I guess probably half of my podcasts are on educational technology. In fact, the most recent one was on something called Immersive Solstice. I interviewed the Chief Technology Officer, and it's very interesting. Video technology can be used in the classroom and throughout your campus. And I've had the opportunity to interview CEOs of a lot of the major learning management systems around. So I encourage everybody to subscribe. You can subscribe through email.
All right, thanks, Rod. Participants, if you want more information about anything you saw or heard today, let me know by contacting me directly at alex@nmc.org. To learn more about future NMC Beyond the Horizon programs and to get involved in our community, please visit us on nmc.org, like us on Facebook, or friend us on Twitter at NMCORG. Save the date for our next NMC Beyond the Horizon, where we're going to focus on personalized learning. That's going to be on May 25th. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next month. Bye.